Hello, and welcome to the Santaland podcast. I created it just for you. I'm your host, Tony Felice, and each episode I'll read to you for 10 minutes, and then we'll talk about what we just heard. Like the cricket in my story, I'll guide you through a grown-up fairy tale, one that explores ideas of existence, identity, and the soul's journey through trauma, and the transformative power of love. By the end, you'll have heard my whole story, a sneak peek into the creative process of bringing a book to life. Maybe we'll read other books together. But for now, follow the wise cricket and discover the Santaland within yourself, a place of hope, connection, and peace that's already inside of you. This podcast is especially made for those like me who feel a little different and maybe talk about math at weddings or philosophy at funerals. And like me, maybe you have a loving husband, or a wife, or somebody else that loves you. If not, we're here to love you, because you're in good company, my dear friends, here in Santaland. Welcome back to the Santaland podcast. We are now up to chapter 9, entitled Galaxies in Her Eyes. Time for us to journey again. Are you with me? On my watch, the portal has opened to 2022, on the Wednesday before Wendy died. Tom lay next to her on his stepfather's bed. He'd not left her side since the moment he had arrived. He chose his moments well, squeezing time for himself with her, alone. She was on her side, facing where he lay across from her. Between them, a table with all of her needs. On it sat a little pink bell with a silly smiley face, its purpose long since past. It grinned apologetically. Tom tried to smile back. He couldn't. He was propped up on his arm, palm next to his face, waiting for the burning bush to acknowledge him. But he was simultaneously afraid, and he spent hours looking at her and then looking away, terrified she might wake up and see pain and anguish instead of love and support. He could not betray her. He would not grieve her before she died. But it took enormous courage for him to admit that it was necessary, and if he were to live the rest of his life, he needed to know that he said a proper goodbye, being her firstborn son, and all that. A teddy bear was squished between her breasts, and she was holding on to the cold bars of the bed rail. Even in her sleep, he knew the bars were cold. He'd rested his head on them earlier when he kissed her hand and held it briefly. He thought the bars looked like a prison. And then he admonished himself, saying, "This isn't time for that. Don't be selfish." He wanted her to see his face in joy, and he was terrified to betray her by looking like a wreck, like a coward. He did not cry in front of her. Instead, he told her jokes and made silly commentary about the television show on the dresser, about which he knew nothing. He stared at her. He looked past her, into her. He thought, they never tell you how to talk to a dying person. So he ran through 100 scripts in his head, and he waited on edge and barely breathing. He lay there for 3 days, off and on, waiting. He rushed to the toilet and nearly ran back each time, afraid he might miss the moment. Then, suddenly, his prayer was answered. Her eyes opened, and Wendy saw Tom through the bars. She struggled to rise, slowly pulling herself up with remarkable strength to rise above the bars of her bed. He was astonished, and his mouth hung open. Her face was luminous, and she recognized her son, and she said, "Oh, Tom, it's you." He'd later say it was like she'd run into him at the mall, or had forgotten that he had arrived. He was astonished and simultaneously outrageously grateful. For a second, he almost chickened out, feeling his eyes start to look away on instinct. "No!" He held her gaze. He watched her focus drift between his world and another, almost like she had one foot here and one foot there, all wonder and taking it in, wide-eyed, with the same startled, happy face of an infant, half lucid, half in a trance. She said to him, with eyes full of stars, "Tom, I am so proud of you." Later, he would stick to the Galaxies in the Eye story. It was true. It was the last moment of his childhood. 4 days later, she died. They ushered her out quietly, her children, terrible, beautiful, graceful, tortuous, grinding. And at death's moment, just the kids and his stepfather were there. A single tear slipped down her cheek. She mouthed the words, "I love you." They heard it, even if garbled, in their hearts as much as their ears. No translation needed. Quite a literary ending. Tom fell to the floor. Poor Tom. Chirp. Okay, what do I talk about with this one that I couldn't talk about for a long time? As you can tell, this has come from real life. My poor mama died 3 years ago, almost 2.5 years ago. And like my character, I wanted to have a conversation with my mother that I didn't get to have. When I arrived, there was lots of family there. My time had passed. And frankly, I knew better. You know, I could have been there. We beat ourselves up all the time when we think about what we could have done or should have done. And like the character, I could have had a bag packed, ready to go. But they never tell you how to deal with somebody dying. They don't tell you those things. You should prepare. I'm here to tell you, you should prepare as if a new baby is coming. Have a bag packed with a week's worth of clothes, your medicine, all ready to go, so that you can, you don't have to waste any time and you can run right out the door. And so we ran right out the door, and it took us 5 hours to get there. And in that space of time, she deteriorated to the point where I never really got a chance to have a conversation with her. But I, like the character, I did to get this moment. My mama, I mean, what are the chances? 1,000,000 to 1 that I would be there and that we would all be present when she passed. I mean, there were a lot of false starts, and it was a very terrifying time for all of us. And we were worn out. By that point, I don't think my brother and sister had had sleep for 2 weeks, and I hadn't had sleep for a week. And sorry about that. The dog just busted in. It's funny, they always know, don't they? Pets, they always know when you're feeling something. So I did get that moment with my mom. She did wake up and she did talk to me. And she looked right at me. And it was like she was here and in some other place at the same time. That's exactly how I experienced it. And we happened to be just present, all of us at the moment. And she did tell us that she loved us right before she passed, never opened her eyes. She knew we were there. And probably the hardest thing I've ever been through. Even the worst of it that you haven't heard yet. This was a rough one, you know. A lot of regret around that. My mom was a great person. I loved her, and you know, there were a few things from the past we never really talked about, and I wanted to talk about with her in a private way, to just say, hey, I love you, and don't worry about it. It's okay, and hopefully get the same thing in return, you know. So that's about all I got to say about that tonight. And I hope you enjoyed this chapter, and I'll see you next time. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it.